On RTE1 now, a special film portrait of Phyllis McGhee, a woman of substance.
People say, oh, I'd love if there was an eternity. Most people, as we know in our society, believe in an afterlife. I couldn't bear it.
Phyllis McGhee and family at home last Christmas. At first glance, a fairy tale picture of the Irish family. Father, mother, two beautiful daughters, love and laughter, pictures in a family album. The story of Phyllis McGhee too reads like a free enterprise fairy tale. The girl born on a small farm in South Tipperary, who emigrated, did well, married and came home to do better. The brilliant businesswoman who reached the top of Bord Foilta's small hotel sector. The woman who recently retired to enjoy her life in her Georgian house at Leeson Street Bridge. But nothing was as it seemed. When these pictures were taken, Phyllis McGhee, her husband Sean, her family and friends, her doctors, all knew she would soon die from cancer. What set her apart was how she coped with that knowledge. In death, as in life, Phyllis McGhee way. Like the author of Slibh she was alone in the crowded hall of Irish society, set apart by her radical religious, personal and political views. For one thing, she was a lifelong socialist. Not an armchair one, but a May Day, red flag, red-blooded, marching socialist. In the 50s, she was active in CND. She championed the bomb beside Bertrand Russell. She faced the police in Trafalgar Square. And every Sunday, she heckled at Hyde Park Corner. She marched against the war in Vietnam. And unlike the flowered children of the 60s, she never mellowed in her convictions or lost her sense of humour. She was an active member of the Workers' Party, the Divorce Action Group, and the Apartheid Movement, the Nicaraguan Support Group. She helped organise the Book of Condolences after Enniskillen and the Peace Train. Pictures of old friends, the writers Brendan and Dominic Behan, the singers Ewan MacColl and Peggy Seeger fight for space on her walls as new causes come crowding in. Clippings about her doings from Pravda, photos of Mikhail Gorbachev in Moscow, or President Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua, who took tea in this room. Frances de Rossa jostles for shelf space, somewhat surprisingly, with political rival Charles Haughey. For de Rossa, she hung a large election banner across the fine facade of her Georgian country, to the scandalised surprise of some neighbours. But Phyllis McGhee never bothered much about what the neighbours might say. Not in politics, and not in love. Her marriage too set her apart from the mainstream of Irish life. Phyllis McGhee was a divorcee. Having divorced in Britain and remarried, she found so much happiness in her second marriage to her husband Sean that during the divorce referendum she changed the railings of Dáil Éireann in an effort to win the same right for others. But what set Phyllis McGhee finally apart in a highly religious society like Ireland was her attitude to death. Phyllis McGhee did not believe in an afterlife. She faced death with no conscience, but rather with the same courage and curiosity that brought her all her life into conflict with the conventional wisdom of her own country. All her life, her only real resource had been reason and reflection. And at the end, she summoned them to her side and found them still true friends and comrades.
Phyllis, if you remember at Christmas we were looking at the album, pictures from 2 years ago when you looked so active and so alert. And then you were called in and you got this terrible, terrible news. Can you tell us how it happened, how you first heard, what your reactions were?
I was living and had decided I wanted to run a business, and I bought a guest house, and I was very excited and thrilled with this business. It was doing very well, and it involved quite a lot of the talents that I have. And suddenly I began to feel very well and very tired, and was taken to hospital, had a hysterectomy, and was diagnosed as being malignant. Well, the shock was, it was quite unbelievable, unbelievable. It took about 3 months to come to terms with the fact that I, this healthy person, suddenly has this sort of deadly growth inside in me. But my husband mainly helped me to get over it. I remember I spent about 3 months almost hysterical. Particularly at night, I would go to bed and go to sleep and pretend to be very brave and let my husband go to work every day. But in the small hours, I would start to cry and go hysterical again, and he would wake up. And one night, he was at his wit's end, obviously, and he said, why are you? Why think that it shouldn't be you? Why should it be anybody else? And while it now seems rather cruel, it was the best words were ever said to me. And I began to sort of pull myself together after that. And then I got, I had a couple of years. Then when I really laid myself into business, I'm a great believer in work, the Protestant work ethic that is so prevalent in Protestant countries. And I know it to be true. The work ethic brought me through. I worked so hard. And then I had a break of about 2 or 3 years. And then I began to become terribly ill again, terribly tired and ill. And I went through a period, it was so bad again when the doctor told me it was back, because I really believed it had gone, because you meet so many people who get cancer and they live to be 90. And I thought I actually had to be one of those, but unfortunately I wasn't. So I took the second diagnosis almost worse than the first. And I heard about, when Luke Kelly was alive, I remember he was always talking about going to the Bristol Cancer Help Centre, but he never did. Like a lot of Irish people, I suppose he put it on the long finger. But I went there, and it was truly a turning point in my life, where the belief there is that only you can have control over the of cancer. And with the aid of modern medicine, I'm a great believer in science. So I went there, and it sounds incredible, but when I arrived in Bristol on a Sunday, I went from London, where I had gone to have an enjoyable holiday. I had actually spent the week in the Royal College of Surgeons library and in the medical department in files, reading up all these horror stories. Everything that I read was dreadful. And I was too mean to buy the books. They priced about £200. And the young man in the shop in Foyles used to say, "May I help you, doctor?" And no, I plodded along through all these huge words, and I found out that really it was, and indeed it was stated there, that the type of cancer I had, which is a very rare cancer, it only hits 1 in 1 million of the population, leiomyosarcoma. And once it comes back, it is known as the cancer of the forest fire. So it wasn't a very happy story to arrive in Bristol with. And when I arrived in Bristol, I got out of the train to get in a taxi to go to the centre. I couldn't speak. I was so overwhelmed with sadness. And the taxi driver said, "I think I know where you want, missus." And he said, "If it's any comfort to you, the people that I bring here every week, I don't recognise the same people when I pick them up to bring them back." I'm a taxi driver. I never forgot it. It was really quite marvellous. And I went there, and it was a miraculous place. Only 12 people were taken. They have a form of therapy, vegetarian, very strict vegetarian food. Now, the food wasn't really marvellous, but then I know British is great gourmets anyway. It's not their strong point. And but the people that I met, they were there from America and most of the British Isles. And interestingly, on the previous week, they have an average of 2 Irish people a week, and they'd had an Irish nun the week before, who sadly, Sister Peter from Galway, has since died, but not before she has established an equally marvellous centre in Galway called Slibh, which should be a great help to Irish people. And on top of being as good as Bristol, it has delicious food. Wonderful. Now, to get